Hello, and welcome back to the Elements of Evolution for another alignment talk. This week, I am so excited to bring you a conversation with the beautiful Morgan. Morgan, before I get into your bio, I just have to say that when I asked you to come on and speak, I knew that there was going to be a call for you forward into your vulnerability. And for me, it was an absolute no-brainer because I have witnessed you in your vulnerability. And to me, someone who I have my moon in the eighth house that is associated with Scorpio and mystery and secrecy and the taboo, it feels incredibly difficult for me to speak even to those closest to me in a way that feels really vulnerable. And witnessing you do it in a way that is so bold and so brave and to me on such a large scale is so incredible. So I am excited to receive whatever flows through you and from you today. And I trust that it's going to be the juiciest conversation. And for anyone listening, Morgan and I have our paths have been weaving together for quite some time. We were young women in high school who were on the periphery of each other's lives. And then, just so organically and beautifully, our work started to weave together. And I remember Morgan being at the first embodied women's retreat I ever hosted. And I got to witness that vulnerability and the strength that was underneath it. And then I myself received from Morgan in the most incredible initiation and empowering course. I don't think course is the right word or it encompasses, but it was a taste for me of her mission in this world. And it supported me to bring my beautiful baby girl, Earthside, in a way that was the most incredible foundation for her to grow from. So I'm gonna read your bio, Morgan, but thank you so much for being here and a huge welcome. Okay, so Morgan Glover, wife, mother, childbirth educator, doula, and international board certified lactation consultant. Congratulations, by the way, my friend. Devoted and operating from the belief that every baby is born brilliant and every mother carries an innate well of wisdom that she can draw from within. Marriage and motherhood have been her greatest teachers, mirrors reflecting the places that longed for deeper trust, greater courage, and fuller authenticity. Through her own healing journey, Morgan has learned that when we feel safe to fully inhabit our bodies, meet our inner world with compassion, and honor our truth with devotion, we cultivate a self-trust from which transformation takes root. She sees pregnancy as a powerful portal, one that can reshape not only the way we birth, but the way that we mother, or sorry, but the way we live and mother. Morgan guides families beyond traditional education into embodied preparation, helping them not only welcome their babies, but also return home to themselves. On the other side of birth, she empowers parents to trust and nurture their babies, innate feeding abilities, dispelling the myth that babies are incapable, and inviting parents to let them lead. Her message is simple, yet transformative. When we trust our bodies and lead with love, we awaken the brilliance that has been within us all along. I have experienced your work myself, and I'll never forget you saying, "Who the fuck am I to gatekeep this information?" And you gave it all to us. So, thank you and welcome. How are you today? How does that feel to receive your own work, your own bio? How does that feel in your body?
It feels so touching to not only hear your words, but also to hear my words. Like I wrote that bio and it was a little long, I'll admit, but to hear it spoken back to me, it just really, it shows me that I belong in this and that both you see that and I see that too.
Mhm.
It's been such a journey. And when you speak about your experience with my work, all those years ago. I feel really present with just how much it's evolved. And there's a part of me that wants to say, but, like, that was way back then. Like, you should see it now, like, have another baby. Um, but just hearing how perfect that moment was just is so reaffirming in how perfect this moment is.
You are bringing a huge piece of wisdom so early in the conversation. We're diving right in. Um,
Yeah.
It feels to me like you are speaking of this really big underlying message that we get to be messy humans, we get to be in the process, and that there really truly is no destination. And now, this present moment is so much more important than the average human gives the awareness around or has awareness around. Um, so for me, these alignment conversations there's something, I just get like a little ping when I speak to someone or when I see them or when I witness their work in the world and I just get this pull to call them on and have this conversation because there's a feeling about alignment and there's something about you that is all transformation all the time, evolution all the time, acceptance, and this piece around not needing to arrive to show up, not needing to be polished or perfect. And I've witnessed it in the way that you share your truth, whether it's at the retreat or you're sharing pieces of your story as you are in the story. And I think way too many of us wait until we can present something with this neat little bow in a package that feels complete and that feels safe. And you feel to me like you are on a mission to create safety, regardless of the external circumstances, how things look. And I just want to ask you, what has your evolution been like to this point on the timeline, this version of who you are now? And if you could share a little bit about your story, perhaps what it felt like to be out of alignment when you were chasing a destination. And feel free to take up space with this because I know that is a loaded question.
Yeah, it's loaded, and I can feel my heart just like thumping right now. So I really just want to like take a moment to honor that because this is such a big question and it is such my story. Because I spent so much of my life deeply out of alignment. It's been such a journey to come back into this place that I once was when I was one of those brilliant babies that I talk about. And so I really am just so devoted to this path of coming home to myself. And in the recent years, I've really started to feel that, to recognize and to connect with these parts of myself that I've really never known. Because when we go deeper into my story, the suppression of my authenticity really goes back so far. And so I just want to fast forward for a second, then I'll go back. But I'm not sure, Kara, if you remember when I came to that embodied women's retreat, we had a moment in the main cabin where we were just like, ha ha, like we both thought we didn't have a story at some point. And I think at that time, we were both really coming into our history and understanding that there's so much there.
My whole body has goosebumps right now with you saying that. I remember.
Yeah, so for really up until my early adulthood, I really did not think I had a story. And yet I had endured so much. Um, when I met my husband and we had our first son, we went through a really deeply challenging time. Adjusting to postpartum felt really difficult for me. I was excited to be a mom and I was happy to be a mom, but I hadn't developed a sense of boundary between me and the outside world. And so, like day two, at 2 days postpartum, 1 day out of the hospital, I was riding the train at the exploration place with my spouse's family. And I just remember like feeling the physical pain in my body. Like I was throbbing, I was aching, like there was still, birth was still moving through my body. But I didn't honor that. And that theme sort of continued. I pushed myself so hard at a time where I was being deeply asked to slow down and to honor myself and to go within and to feel these sensations that were coming up to be felt. I was so afraid because all of this trauma from my childhood and my adolescence, it was starting to surface, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't understand it. I just felt it. And I became so afraid of anyone getting close to me that I built up these walls around me. I was so afraid of being touched because of the pain I would feel on these wounds that were now up at the surface. And so that created a lot of tension in my life. And without any real resources or understanding of how to meet this, I became so afraid. My whole life, my whole reality was painted in fear. And so there were baby steps. I had enough awareness to know that I was not okay. And so, I read some books really early on and I had no understanding. I had no education about emotions, about behavior, about that connection of how under every behavior there's an emotion there. There's something in the body, something somatic. So I started to learn about that and it gave me the energy to keep going. And we had our second child. And after that, I reconnected with my ability to have a boundary, but I also felt and saw what that could do when it's not well received. And so I felt like I was practicing being. And when that wasn't received, I really deeply contracted back into this state of fear. And so eventually I pursued therapy. And, my biggest motive for going into therapy was that my thoughts and feelings were not aligning. I could see what was happening. I could see the disconnection in my marriage. I could see myself suffering or struggling rather to embody my role as a mother. I felt so disconnected from life, but my thoughts could see it all happening. I could see my marriage slipping. I could see myself disconnecting. I could feel the numbness, but I couldn't feel anything else. And without the feeling sense, I wasn't able to act in the way that I wanted to act. And so when I started therapy, it became very obvious that I had an extremely traumatic past. And I didn't even know what the word trauma meant at this time. And this was only just a few years ago. And I certainly wouldn't have classified myself as someone who carried trauma in their body. But when we really looked back, there were so many things. There was a childhood of seeking love from an unavailable parent, which then grew into an adolescence of trying to find that love out in the world. I came from a family where we moved very frequently, more times than I can count, and I went to 7 different schools. And so I was constantly put in new environments. And the older I got, the less safe they became, the more of myself I had to give up in order to feel some sense of control. And so things happened. I got really, really, really hurt. And so going through therapy really helped me name and validate what had happened. And it was the first time in my life when I met my husband, Jamie, he was so different than anything I'd ever experienced. And our relationship grew so quickly and so organically that whether conscious or not, I was going that way. That was my direction now. And so I was not connected to or present with the past. But when I gave birth, when I opened, when I expanded, everything came to the surface. And I truly, truly believe that that's for a reason. And I see it now. It's this incredible invitation to tend to those parts of myself that are hurting. It's this divine time where I'm becoming a mother now. I choose now what goes to my child and what ends with me. But I didn't understand it at the time. I just felt it and I was so deeply afraid of it. And so through therapy, I was able to really give my past the weight that it needed for me to take responsibility for it,
Mm.
to really, truly recognize that it will impact my future, that it's part of my story. As much as I want to keep it buried and just have this turning point in my life, it's always, always been there. And so eventually through therapy, what ended up happening is I got really stuck. All this trauma had been named, it had been validated, it was real. And now I was so identified with it that I just began to loop and loop and loop. And it felt like I couldn't get out. I was now truly broken and I needed to be fixed. That's what it felt like. It wasn't just in my head, it was real and something needed to happen. So, very lovingly, because I had a beautiful relationship with my therapist, she she set me free. She said that she'd taken me as far as she could take me and that I needed to explore something more somatic. And up until this point, we talked and talked and talked and talked about it. But I was still numb. I was still shut down. I still had my thoughts telling me what I wanted to do in a situation, but because I couldn't feel, I couldn't act. I could see the thing I wanted to do and I couldn't get to it. And so as my relationship continued to evolve and carry the weight of this distance, we ran into some really hard times. Like some really, really difficult things came up that really scared me. Now I was on my own in this. I didn't have a therapist, and these really big things were starting to happen. So it was at that point that I was like, well, fuck it. What's God? What's God? Because I had never gone down a spiritual path before, but I was feeling pretty desperate. And so I started exploring A Course in Miracles, which is a spiritual philosophy. It's a text and a workbook. And it was probably the greatest gift of my entire life so far because it taught me that love is the only thing that's real, that everything else is an illusion. And so at any given moment, in any situation, I had the opportunity to either choose love or to choose fear. And I was so, so, so deeply entangled with the fear that even despite getting this knowledge and feeling really elevated and excited, it's taken me still a long time to really develop that as a practice. I say to my husband all the time that, like, I'm so hyper vigilant about this. And that's been so necessary on my path. And so anytime fear arises in my body, I have this devotion to entangling with love in some way. I don't even know where I'm at on this story.
You were at
I
a,
don't recall the question. There's a lot there.
it is the perfect evolution of your story. You're at a place where the talk therapy wasn't working. You didn't have the tools yet to dive into the somatic realm and really shift this density. And actually, I'm gonna interject a little bit and see what comes from you after this pivot point, okay?
Okay.
It is my belief that every single human incarnated at this time is on a mission and has a responsibility to shed the density that lives in them at the intersection of frequency and emotion. And it's Dr. David Hawkins, I believe, that wrote a book called Letting Go. And his work was around establishing a visual representation of the frequencies that we feel during the human experience. The dense ones happen to be things like shame, guilt, grief, sorrow, embarrassment, and so on until it gets to this middle of the road place around neutrality, acceptance, and then up and up and up. And then you start getting into the realms of joy, of fun, of ease, of harmony, flow, ecstatic joy, and at the very, very top, love. And I also equate this to almost like there's a density in the layers of our body as well. And I come from a lineage, for anyone listening that doesn't know this already, of Eastern philosophy underneath the umbrella of Ayurveda, which means the wisdom or the science of life. And Ayurveda teaches us that we are more than merely the physical vessel. we have multiple bodies. And from the gross or the dense physical vessel, then there is the energetic, there is the mind and the emotions, all the way up to this part of us that is energy. And there is an ancient part of us, if energy cannot be created or destroyed, there's a part of us that is so ancient that has been here long before this physical vessel and will be here long after. And that part of us, I call our higher self at source, aka the part of us that vibrates only in love. And it is our human job in one way or another to feel and to release the emotion, the biophysiological event that an emotion is, release it from our vessel so that we have more spaciousness to welcome in these higher frequency joy, love, ease, all of it, these higher frequencies into our body to feel. So, what I'm hearing from you is this, and we're going to dive into your chart in a bit because you're speaking into something so juicy in the realm of Pisces. But you were in this place of contraction and an inability or the very human tendency to avoid feeling the density, but then it also wouldn't allow you to feel the other end of the spectrum, the higher frequencies that we so deeply desire to feel in this experience. So I'm curious, as you listen to this and you tap back into this evolution, when that started, even if that wasn't the conscious conversation for you, but when that work really started to happen, was it after talk therapy and you started diving into the somatic realm? And how are you feeling now?
So it definitely wasn't after talk therapy. I still felt really, really lost. And like honestly, when she lovingly let me go and said, you need something more somatic, I initially was like, well, that's the end of the journey for me because I don't know where to get that. I don't see an example of that in my community. I don't know who I can go to guide me or to support me through this process. And so, in a way, like I sort of am doing that and have done that for myself. And so after working with her, I started working with this incredible woman online. She was a sex and relationship coach, and her name's Meg O'Neill. And her work was so beautiful. Like I was so drawn to it, and I believed in it, and it felt so inspiring, and it was a different way, and I wanted so badly to choose it. But again, it was still with my mind, like I could not get my body on board at that time. And so I was inspired by it. I saw this other potential out there, and I knew that I wanted it, but it still wasn't sort of like landing with me in my body. Earlier this year, my husband, my children, we were away. We'd gone on a work trip together. And my husband and I had a really, really difficult experience. And I think it was very much like a turning point for me because although we'd had challenges in the past, in those instances, I was still just thinking, but not feeling and unable to act. In this specific experience, I was heartbroken, like totally heartbroken. And so, although it was incredibly difficult to hold and feel, I was feeling more than I was thinking. I was feeling, I was totally embodied in this experience, like it was taking me. And so we got home from that trip, and I knew I wanted to return back to the practice of A Course in Miracles. And I wanted to go deeper because I'd already learned that everything that's real is love, and everything that's not is not. But what I needed to come back to is every expression from my husband was either an expression of love or a call for love. And so fear could no longer belong. Like with a broken heart and this firm belief that it was broken from love and through love and for love. Like that was the path forward. That is when I truly began to feel the sensations of my body, to feel all of the emotions. Earlier this year, after that had happened, actually on the way from that home from that happening, and me diving back into A Course in Miracles, it aligned with this time, this natural transition in our life where I was going to take a break from working and stay home. This was already planned. The universe was like, she's slowing down, give it to her. But I did. I came home from that experience and I returned to love and I slowed so far down. I haven't worked in months. I've been gardening and I have been tending to my children, but tending to myself. I've been moving so slowly and giving myself so much time just to feel and to feel it all, everything, and not just to feel, but to actually honor what's there. My body is so brilliant and it has so much to say. Like it is speaking to me all the time. And I had no idea. Like I have not heard her for years. And so here's the thing. I've had a really challenging relationship with my father my whole life. And like I just wanted him to love me so bad. And like when I never felt that, I just got so angry. And like I put up such a wall that I carried with me like deep into my adult life. We wouldn't talk for years, and I would still feel anger when I thought of him. And really, underneath that anger was so much sadness. After we went through that experience, and I really truly began to feel and to honor what was true, I decided very consciously to forgive my father. Something I learned in A Course in Miracles is that when we hold someone else guilty, we hold ourselves guilty too. And I just knew if I was going to truly open to my husband, if I was going to truly choose love, I needed to let this guilt go. I needed to see myself as lovable, and holding myself guilty for not feeling loved by my dad could not come. And so when I did that, my dad was very confused. He was like, "What do you mean?" I was perfect.
Mm.
But I was so free. And I want to backtrack because that actually wasn't his response. His response was actually quite beautiful. His response was, "I haven't messaged you back." This was sometime later because I don't understand it. And he said, "I want to understand it. I just don't understand it right now." So it was incredibly freeing for me, but it was also evidence that it wasn't the same for him. And so what came from that was beautiful because I just felt myself open completely. And my ability to give and receive love from and to my husband and to my children. Like, this place was a fucking party. Like, we were all, everyone was just like feeling this energy shift in our home. Everything was flowing. Like, it was the kingdom, and it still is. It was just such a visceral shift. I had the first really open, honest, vulnerable conversation with my mom of my life, and it totally deepened our relationship. And I'm more generous. I'm just more giving because I'm no longer afraid. It was so beautiful. And my dad actually ended up coming to visit for the first time almost ever afterwards. And in the past, had that happened, I would have felt so anxious and been just reeling with all the ways that I'm going to get hurt. And this time, like, I remember sitting down with my journal before he got here and just like writing out all the ways that this is going to be so amazing and how I'm so excited and like all the ways that like this is going to help me grow. And when he came, like, we couldn't believe it. Like, we sat at the table and he just shared and shared and shared. Like, he was so like himself, I guess. Like, I've never seen this, but it just felt so natural. And he shared so much of his life with us. And like, I got to know some of his story. And like, afterwards, I learned some things through my mom that like my dad had grown up in such extreme poverty that when he got out and he started, to do his own life, he just became so obsessed with money and power because there was no fucking way. There was no way that he was going to have that for us. And so, wherever the work was, he would take us. And so, all of these things that hurt so bad because I felt like I couldn't reach him. And I felt like I was invisible because I was just being taken from place to place to place. And I never knew how to land. I always felt like that I was difficult for having a hard time. So through love and through forgiveness, I've been able to see. It doesn't take away the hurt. It doesn't take away everything that I had to endure, but I can see that it all came from love and that I was always lovable. So now I'm just like the most deeply feeling woman that I know that I've ever experienced. There was a time in there where I went over 2 years without crying, like without shedding a single tear. I'm not joking, I cry every day. And I don't know if that is going to be for the rest of my life or if this is just the big release that I'm in. But every single day, I make space to feel. And it can be really difficult. It's extremely liberating. It also means that I have to choose to take up space, that I have to choose to feel inconvenient, that if we're headed out the door or if we're, I don't know, doing something that I might need to slow us down, I might need to change the vibe. If we're in the bedroom, I might need to stop or change what we're doing. It means that I am constantly taking what still feel like risks sometimes of choosing to feel and then choosing to honor what's there. But it's like every time I do, I learn that it's safe, even when it's hard, even when it creates some friction, even if somebody gets hurt. It's safe to honor who I am and it's safe to feel.
Morgan, wow. What a full circle story. What a full circle story. This has been so beautiful. I feel called to speak into your chart because through your story, you have spoken about the evolution of archetypes in a way that me just consciously teaching could never do. So I'm going to share your chart and I've sort of hid your birth date up here, so no worries.
Okay, send presents.
Yeah, exactly. You can see this, can you not?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to start with Pisces, the archetype that rules your fifth house of play, of childhood, of romance, of fun. And this part of you that with your sun in Pisces, your sun has to do with how you experience yourself as separate from the collective. It is your personality. It is tied to your ego. It is how you are differentiated from everyone else. And the sun is a fiery planet plunged into the watery sign of Pisces that has no boundary. Pisces is about diffusing into the all that is, into everyone, into the collective. So, this piece that you speak into around not having boundary throughout your whole life, and Pisces being part of the collective, speaking from a light or mature side of this archetype, is all about love. So there's this piece of you that has always valued and longed for love in a really deep way and was disassociating from such a young age when that wound came of separation. And sometimes the wound begins literally at birth, from being separated from the mother, from our regulatory person, because we can't, and I know you teach on this, we don't have the ability until we're at least 3 years old to self-soothe, to self-regulate. Our mother is our nervous system. So here you are, born into a world, feeling what it is to be separate, longing for love, because that's what Pisces ultimately is. It is the all that is. It is the ethers, it's the etheric, it's the spiritual. So feeling this human experience is already a challenge. And then to perceive through that lens of separation that's created at birth. And when you say your wounding goes so far back, it truly is at birth. And then to through that lens be witnessing experiences through your young childhood, your adolescence, all the way up until when that lens started to shift, you're seeing through this wound of separation and longing for what an innate part of you knows is possible, right? And and being this Scorpio rising human that you are, with Scorpio ruling your first house of self and body, your physical vessel, you are quite literally here to be Scorpio embodied. And Scorpio is watery, it is intense, it is the deepest of the water signs. It is all the taboo things. It is the walking permission slip that you are to fucking feel and to be authentic and to honor your truth, because Scorpio cannot stomach the superficial. It is not about having a chat at the cafe with someone about the weather. It is let's get on a podcast and be real and cry my fucking tears. This can be your practice for the day.
Yeah.
But you are literally here to be that walking permission slip, to rise into the energy of Scorpio, to be that intense, inconvenient woman that is wild and takes up space and doesn't need permission from someone else. This is us rising into our leadership to really realize I am the mother. And how do we mother our children? Not in a way that is, I'm going to be your friend and I'm going to give you only the medicine that has sugar in it. It's I see what you need and I'm going to do the uncomfortable thing because it's what's beneficial for everyone involved here. On top of this Scorpio rising energy, Morgan, you've got Pluto, who is associated with Scorpio, the ruler of Scorpio, in your first house of self, which means that it fuses with this part of you. The when people first meet you, that's the energy that they encounter is intense, Scorpio, deep, mysterious, taboo. And then to have Pluto there, this is all amplified because Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio, and in Greek mythology is the planet of death and rebirth, the lord of the underworld, Hades. And Hades is not banished to the underworld because he's a big, bad, dark dude. He's there because he's the only one that has enough light to withstand the darkness. And that's you. It means that throughout your entire life, you will always be in transformation. You will always be alchemizing, which brings us back to the beginning of our conversation when we talked about there is no fucking destination, that we get to be. And I want to just sort of have this, drop this in here because when we approach our journey, our evolution from that lens, it means that we're not broken. Even if you had to honor the breaking to be this version of you now, but it's all part of the process. And when we go looking for things, we find them. So it's like, okay, I can trust myself now to honor anything that arises, to hold myself, to remother, to refather myself in the ways that I'm being called to do. And I can direct my energy into what is going well. In the realm of healing, in the industry of healing, so many of us spend only all of our time only on the one side of the coin, which is the healing part, the feeling part, the releasing density, the looking for what's wrong, quote, wrong for anyone listening. And we don't choose to honor the other side of the coin, which is the other end of the spectrum of frequency. Like, okay, now how do I welcome the love? Now how do I welcome the joy, the play, the ease? What if it gets to be fun? What if it gets to be good? Especially when it can be really easy to have the perspective that it's never felt good, it's never felt easy, it's never felt safe. So I see you as this woman on a powerful journey that's shifting not only yourself, but your entire lineage. And I know that at the retreat, I'll never forget saying that when we do the work to heal ourselves, it ripples forward and backwards throughout our lineage and throughout the collective. So when we heal ourselves, we are helping our foremothers, our forefathers, and literally the ones that are still earthside. So the story that you bring to us and share so boldly and bravely because you are a Scorpio rising, capable of going with all of the taboo, the intense. It's just incredible to witness the evolution, the unfolding of the relationships that you've had, not only with yourself, with your parents, with your body, all of it. And I'm just,
I
you go.
in the few months ago, I really tapped into something, and it was this revelation that I was coming into relationship with my inner world, with myself. Everything up until this point had been from the outside in, and I was really getting to know myself. And I said to Jamie at one point how coming into relationship with my inner world and learning that I have one has made me so much more curious about other people's inner worlds. And so it's changed the way I interact because before, when I was really stuck in fear, I was afraid to open with people, or when I did, I was really up here in my mind. I was thinking about what I was going to say or what was going to happen next. And that was really exhausting. And it only allowed me to ever go so deep. But with this embodied experience of having an inner world, I feel so much more curious. And I've connected on such deeper levels with, like I said, my family here, but also like my mom. So when you say that it's not just you, but it's those in front and those behind, it's so true. And I feel that on such a real felt level.
Your story is a beautiful representation of this. And I love that you say that you were, because Pisces, one of the shadow sides of Pisces is shoving things down. It is detaching, right? It is the numbing. And whether we numb through drugs and alcohol or any sort of addiction, because there's so many things that can be a form of addiction that the world thinks is healthy. Whether maybe you're someone who goes to the gym because that's how you shut out things or that's how that sort of thing. That's part of the shadow part of Pisces. And what you're doing is alchemizing all of the shadow, all of the pain, all of the hurt, and you're transforming it into something that can be beautiful, that can be love. So this Course in Miracles that you speak of, this decision to see through the lens of love rather than the lens of fear, even if it's not totally perfect, we don't make that decision and then act like it's changed the next day. This is an ongoing process, right? And it's beautiful to witness you in it. And I love that you're mentioning this disconnect as I was bringing into the conversation because you've also got Mercury right next to your sun in Pisces, which means that if you were disconnected from your body, you're disconnected from your voice. And girlfriend, I've been listening to you this entire podcast and your voice is there. You're connecting. And it's so
So I went to a breathwork ceremony a few months ago, and it was another sort of catalyst for me. And it was called Touching the Jaguar. And so the essence was to touch your greatest fear. And I'm not joking, within the first like 5 breaths, my body was like abandonment, divorce. And then I had the next hour to really touch that and really sit with that. And when you grounded me in before this podcast, you talked about how Mother Earth is here to hold me through this. And what the facilitator had said in this breathwork ceremony was that every time you've ever needed to fall to your knees Mother Earth has been there to catch you. And it was just like, damn, I can't argue that. That is such the truth. And so she continued on and she said, this thing that you fear, this jaguar, this is what's stopping you from living. And she said, the way to release this is through your voice. Tell your stories. And that was enough for me already. But then she said, the people in your life deserve to know you. They deserve to know who you are. And that was just such a thing for me because I realized that, like, I'm really keeping everyone out because I'm so afraid of everyone leaving. I'm keeping them all out. And so it was sort of just this moment of like, Mother Earth has got my back. This thing I'm afraid of is keeping me from the thing I want so bad. And the way for me to get there is to let it all come up, to use my voice. And so that really feels like the work of the moment for me is learning to trust my voice. And so when you asked me to come on this podcast, I was like, ooh, right. I was like, this is, and when we started earlier today, I said, I feel like I'm being called forth. And like, this really felt like it was put on my path to help me cross that threshold. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, it is my honor. I want to add one more thing here that you just spoke into that's reflected in your chart. So, can you see this Jupiter symbol in your 10th house that's ruled by Leo for anyone listening? So, Leo is the archetype of the like ultimate self-acceptance, the ultimate self-love, the one that's like, I'm gonna pop my shit, I'm gonna wear what I want to wear, I'm gonna do me and like fuck everyone else in the most loving way. Leo is also generous as fuck, so loving, rules the heart. And Leo is about like loving and radiating love. And the more that you do that, you've got the planet Jupiter in your 10th house of career and achievement.
Hmm.
How you are here to serve. So the more that you're able to like embrace this scorpionic part of you that's like intense as fuck and messy and in her process because she's this wild feminine creature that's capable of feeling now, that's so deeply connected. Scorpio, by the way, rules our pelvic bowl, our genitals, our cervix, our whole yoni, call it your pussy, whatever you want to call it. And then your throat is literally on the other side of the axis of Scorpio. So it's like the more you open your throat, the more you open your cervix. Cervix is Latin for throat. It's such beautiful work that you're doing. And the more that you are visible in this Leo energy, the more you tell your story, and like right really opposing this Saturn in your fourth house, this relationship to father. So this moment that you bring into the story of choosing to forgive your father and then witnessing the love pour in that you've always been hungry for is like you can just see it all related. You can see the shift in your chart. It's such beautiful reflection. Pluto's there now, by the way. Transiting Pluto is still working with this energy of the inner king, the inner father, and it will undoubtedly ripple out into your external world. Like it is powerful energy coming in to shift for you. And then you've got seriously like 19 fucking years of Pluto going through your fourth house of self in the name of authenticity, ditching whatever is superficial, whatever's not true for you, so that you can be the most powerful version of yourself. Like, thank you to the universe for giving us Morgan Glover.
Yeah, that feels so, yeah, it just feels so aligned. I'm just shedding so much emotionally, mentally, physically in my space. Like that is the mission right now is like how much can I release? How much space can I create for this next evolution to come through? And like I feel it so much. I feel so much excitement, but also just steadiness going back into my work whenever that time may come. I know deeply that it's no longer just about sharing education. There's so much more that I offer from an embodiment perspective. And I just have felt this like maturity sort of happening, where I can look back and I would never change anything. Like, despite everything it's taken to get me here, like, this is my soul's journey and it's so beautiful and I'm so grateful for it. But I think there's so much more meaning behind my work now, really deeply understanding the initiation that coming into motherhood is and the opportunity. And I just have this drive to resource and empower people who are going on that journey.
You carry for sure, it's reflected in your chart, and I know this of you, but this piece around being the bridge between the material, the mundane world, and the etheric. It is no surprise that your work is to help support the bringing of babies earthside in the most healthy, empowering way for everyone involved in the journey. And I love that motherhood was your initiation and your first experience of bringing baby into the world with your eldest. I know that that was an example for you to look back on. I absolutely respect that you wouldn't change it because it's part of your story and it's absolutely been a part of you becoming this version of you. And then to have the experience of bringing your second earth side with a very different intention, even if boundary wasn't perfect at that time. And there's something else here I want to say. It'll come to me, but does that bring anything up that just like this language of being the bridge between the etheric and the material realm with this Pisces energy that you have?
I've always been so proud to be a Pisces. I know that sounds interesting, but everything I learn about it, I'm always just like, yes, those are the most connected parts of me. And they're not always the most expressed, but when I learn about them, I connect with them so deeply.
Mm.
So that excites me so much to hear. And I'm like, I kind of never thought of it like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the other thing that this makes me want to bring into the conversation is that you've got Cancer ruling your ninth house. So Cancer is the archetype of the mother. It is the nurturer, but it's got these two little circles with tails that kind of follow one another because Cancer is not just the mother, it's also the child.
Hmm.
So it's like your moon sign is here. And if you think about the psyche or the anatomy of the psyche rather, we know that the conscious part of us, which is represented by our sun, is 5%, and that the unconscious part represented by our moon is the 95. So you've got this watery rising energy. You've got a watery sun, you've got a watery moon. There's so much beautiful water in your chart. I'm so happy to hear that you literally create container to let the water flow, just like the card that you pulled at the beginning of this conversation. And with the moon in this energy of Cancer, because the moon rules Cancer, so it's operating super efficiently. Like you are meant to be a cyclic creature, you are meant to nurture and be nurtured, and it's actually tied to your spirituality. This is bringing it like a very philosophical, very spiritual, why are we here, what is purpose, these spiritual lessons that you are enveloped in, they're intimately weaving with motherhood and with healing because you've got Chiron in the ninth house, also in Cancer, far enough away from your moon that it's like, thank goodness, because holy, would that have been a lot if it was touching your moon? But Chiron, I always think of the quote that Rumi brings into this, which is the wound is the light, the wound is the place where the light enters you. So with Chiron here, it's like, oh, yes, there is some sort of wounding around being nurtured or family. It is the wound of family. And in your evolution, not only are you healing that wound, but your work in the world is to do with not creating more of it.
Mm,
And it's
mm.
all tied into your spiritual process, your spiritual practice.
Yeah, that hits. Yeah, I feel that so deeply. That feels so aligned.
So, as the bridge that you are from the etheric into this material world that we live, like I could not think of a better person to be doing the work that you're doing. And it speaks to alignment to me because you organically found it. It blasted you the fuck open, and you continue to pursue, ongoing education for yourself. I feel, even though these are not words I've personally heard out of your mouth, I don't know if you've said this before, but you emit this promise, this energy of promise. I fucking promise I will always evolve. I will always learn more. I will always bring to you my truth, and I will always support yours. That's what you feel like to me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. You are so, so incredible. Thank you for your story, for your truth, for your vulnerability and your strength. It is such an honor to witness you, to witness your tears, to hear your story and receive you. And I want to be able to share your work with the world. You know that I always send everybody your Instagram account when it comes to childbirth education. I highly recommend Morgan's course for anyone listening or watching. You will be empowered. You will absolutely be empowered. And maybe one day I will share my birth story and link it to this episode. But I just want to invite you, Morgan, to take up some space. I know you're not working now and you plan on going back in the new year, but where can people find you and follow along with your journey?
They can find me on Instagram as long as I'm not on a hiatus. If I'm on a hiatus, then you can't find me. Right now, it's at Be With Birth, or I do have a website, bewithbirth.ca. And I just actually want to close with a quote. This was from my first ever birth work course, the incredible Jessica Austin, who passed just shortly after the course's completion. You might remember this, Kara. I share it at the end of every childbirth ed program. It's making things look easy is not the only way to do them. You're allowed to cry, to complain, to protest. It doesn't mean you can't. Making things look easy isn't the only way to do them, isn't the only way to make things worth doing, and isn't the only way to make you powerful. Thank you so much, Kara. This has been beautiful.
You are so, so welcome. Thank you for sharing that. You are incredible. Thank you for all of your wisdom. I'm going to stop the recording now.
Okay.